the need for a translation program in India, which is not government managed. I mean, there do exist a few translation projects through the National Book Trust and Sahitya Academy, but a lot more needs to be done. Most countries around the world which popularize their literature do so by giving subsidies for translation costs. And this is why we end up reading a lot more. I mean, you know, that's how books are traveling. We read more German books now than we did 50 years ago, for instance. We read a lot many other European languages as well, because the translation subvention program in these countries are very strong. So Kannan will make a short presentation and invite a discussion at the end of his presentation for inputs from publishers and authors here, so that we can create an idea or a vision statement document that can help us design and perhaps, you know, even start looking at how something like this can be funded and who could fund it potentially, etc. So with that in mind, I'd like to invite Kannan to please tell us about his idea for this.
Let me begin by thanking Publishing Next, particularly Leo and Vinuta, for creating this space to open a discussion on a possible Indian subvention program. I think this will be of importance to many of us or all of us here. As I begin my presentation, please allow me to state a few truisms. I'm going to pretend it's a literary device to enrich this presentation, so you'll have to indulge with me for a few minutes. Publishing industry is undergoing the most sweeping changes since inception. Technology is penetrating and changing every aspect of publishing. Some may view these changes positively, and some others may cling on to nostalgia. Many might find themselves a space in the many shades of grey. But I think all of us will agree that these changes are defining and inevitable. New technologies have also made publishing more accessible to all. Therefore, the competition is already intense and probably will get more intense in the future. N.S. Krishnan is an iconic 20th century cultural figure in Tamil. He was a humorist, a theatre artist, folk performer, singer, political activist, commentator, and many other things. He is also widely believed to be the forerunner and model for NGR, the movie superstar and many times Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu. Speaking of the competitive nature of Tamil movie industry, he once made a very insightful comment. In the present world, it could be extended to the entire gamut of the media, including publishing. NSK, as he is popularly known, pithily observed, in the movie industry, even when you sleep, you must keep shaking your legs, otherwise you will be presumed dead. We publish books, we organize launches, facilitate reviews in the media, market them efficiently, but despite all this and more, we also need to shake our legs even as we sleep. Make sure our books travel across languages is one way of gaining an edge for any publisher. If there is anything that pleases an author more than a royalty check, it is seeing her book published in other Indian or world languages. The importance of translating literature and ideas cannot be understated. It is important to mutually understand our diverse cultures within India and outside, and accept them as essentially human and equal. Such an understanding is essential for a modern human civilization to evolve. An understanding that is created through exchange of experience, insight, ideas, and creativity can be a safety measure in a world that is increasingly ruled by divisive and hateful politics. All our differences, linguistic, racial, color, religious, caste-based, are now weapons in the hands of demagogues who increasingly decide our fate. The total revolution in communication technology that has happened in the past couple of decades has contrarily also strengthened the fear of the other. Evidently, we need more than information and data to foster understanding. Literature and ideas might help us to a great extent, though there can be no one-stop cure to any complex problem. One can safely say cultural understanding helps in the time of cholera. It can create an oasis of acceptance in this divisive national and international politics. Literature exploring the human condition can be an antidote to what power politics always whips up as the hateful other. While billions of rupees are spent on building the muscles of our nation, while billions of dollars are spent on the muscles of our nation, very little is done to promote literature of Indian languages. When it comes to promoting Indian culture, literature ranks way below classical music and fine arts. To translate literature and ideas from Indian languages to other Indian and international languages, there is a need, I think, to set up an organization with a program to promote Indian writing, including Indian writing in English, an organization that is independent, efficient, sensitive, and driven by people with passion and commitment. Let us now call it PIL, Promoting Indian Language Literature. First, to a look at the possibilities of translating among Indian languages. Translation between Indian language literatures are promoted by National Book Trust and Sahitya Academy. We can broadly agree that they have made some remarkable contribution in spreading the word. However, both the organizations are not as active in translating literature as they used to be. Moreover, there is a need to encourage all publishers to publish translations. Project translation must be as broad-based as possible, tuned to pollinate as many languages as possible so that we have a better and richer understanding of composite India. It may not be rational to expect few government organizations to fulfill the translation needs of our nation of umpteen languages. Barring a few star authors, translated writings do not sell in very big numbers. Many Indian languages do not have a full-fledged book culture where translations can be fully supported by the book sale. Even in the more vibrant languages, publishers are understandably hesitant to risk translating a new author. If we have an organization that publishers can consult, one that facilitates synergy between publishers and offers some material support to publishers, then this will go a long way in encouraging them to take risk and publish more translations. PIL can introduce interested publishers to the literature of other languages, suggest titles that work best in translation, make available reading copies, connect them to each other, advise them on the terms of contract, and so on. PIL can buy translation rights for a limited print order and gift it to the translating publisher. It can subsidize the translation cost of the publisher. The expense incurred will not be very high, certainly much less than the cost for a government organization in maintaining a bureaucracy to edit, print, stock, publish, and distribute books. On a modest budget, it would be possible to effect significant number of translation between the many languages of India. As we aspire to encourage the travel of Indian fiction to world languages, a first important step is to translate them to English and publish them. Acquisition editors in all international publications are comfortable with English. An Indian language book, after it is selected for publication by, say, a French publisher, may be directly translated from the source language to French. However, for the process of selection, a high quality, well-edited English translation will be very helpful. This can also be achieved by a translation subvention program. Now a few lines about Kalachodu. In the last 10 years, Kalachodu, we have translated 47 works from 15 world languages. This was largely made possible by the support of translation promoting agencies of many countries, both monetary and in otherwise. So we started translating in a significant way in 2003. And I went to Frankfurt on a program in 2007. So as that started yielding some results, from 2009-10 onwards, you can see that we are translating much more. And one important reason for this is that we got some support from the agencies of other countries, which I have shown earlier. Yeah. Yeah. But in all these years, I have managed to sell rights for only 3 Tamil works to 3 European languages. This is not because of lack of drive on my part. I try to sell them to at least 250 publishers and agents from over 50 countries in the last 8 years. It is also not that they did not like what they read. But the question was, can they afford to take a risk in publishing an unknown author from a barely known language, given the economy and the turbulence in publishing? As I seek out subvention programs in Frankfurt Book Fair, I have counted about 40 countries that have agencies so far. European, Asian, South American, Australian, Canadian, and Welsh and Scotland in UK. They have agencies to promote their literature. India is probably the only economically powerful nation of the world not to have a dedicated agency or an aggressive translation program. The Turkish subvention program, TEDA, was launched in 2005. In 1 decade, they have promoted translations of nearly 1,200 works to over 60 different languages. 2 programs came up in India in the last few years. One of them, Indian Literature Abroad, later on went to the Sahitya Academy, and one more program from the National Book Trust. They came up because of the initiatives of well-meaning individuals. Frankly, their performance has not been up to a scratch. The rabbits always win everywhere except in fairy tales. I do not think any lethargic Indian government agency can do the job of promoting Indian writing to the world. They will not have the independence, efficiency, sensitivity, and flexibility. You cannot expect government officers posted to a position to have the passion required to drive this program. Without passion, we cannot promote our literature to the world. Miracles do happen, like the tenure of Nirmal Kanti Bhattacharjee and M.A. Sikandar as the directors of NBT. But miracles do not last, nor can we afford to wait for them. Allow me to translate a very moving experience from, narrate a very moving experience from Frankfurt. I have been visiting one literature promoting agency in Frankfurt for many years. It is represented in the international fairs mostly by girls in their 20s and 30s. Over the years, I have gotten to know some of them. I had scheduled a meeting with one of them, let us call her Maria, during the last Frankfurt Book Fair. We had met a few times before. She is a live wire, eager, helpful, and ready to go beyond her brief if you tap her for information and suggestions. At our last meeting, at about 5 in the evening, I found her very distracted, unable to focus. So I stopped my spiel and I asked her what is wrong. She stared blankly for a few moments and said, I came early, I had a very light breakfast, I didn't have my lunch, and I'm surviving on coffee since morning. So I asked her why. She said she had back-to-back meetings throughout the day. So would a 15-minute break for lunch really hurt? Her response was, I am here on public money and I have to give my best. It really brought tears to my eyes. We get to meet representatives of the Indian government organizations in Frankfurt. Let us just say the difference is really stark. How can PIL promote our writing to the world? PIL would participate in the leading book fairs of the world, spread the word. The small presses will be keener to publish translations more than corporate publishers. So a generous translation grant can do wonders. PIL can also make available English translations of important Indian writing to the acquisition editors of international publishers. Translators of Indian writings can be offered residency programs in India. When translated works of an Indian author are published in other countries, PIL can support the travel of the author to participate in book launches and readings. PIL can organize a publishers fellowship program for international publishers to bring them here and to familiarize them with the diversity and the richness of Indian publishing industry and our writing. There are many more possibilities, but I will stop here now so we have time for discussions.
So, questions, comments, many hands. I'll just take her question. She was raising it first. Question or comment, I'm not sure, but the mic to the lady here, please.
I have done some translations of literary works from Marathi to English. And I thought that I should let some translating agency know about it so that more work could come my way. So I registered with a translation association which is based in Delhi. And I was quite startled because I got lots of work coming my way, which was to translate informed consent forms for pharmaceutical companies and labels on shampoo bottles and stuff like that. So if you're looking at translation in a broader way, it's not restricted to creative writing alone. Just a comment.
Sure. But the discussion here today is for translation of literature. Exactly. Exactly. I understand. Yes, Vivek, please.
I had a question which also digresses a little bit slightly from literature, but this morning session and then this one, why is there no appetite for, non-literature and serious non-fiction or even management or academic works? Why is that? Since morning session, I've been seeing that being isolated. Is there a reason for it? Is there no market? Is there, so I'm in talk with some of the same agencies to try and bring their management books, which are originally in, for example, in German, to bring them into India. So why is there some hesitancy here?
No, when I said literature, I did not mean to exclude. non-fictions. That's why I also said ideas, which would, I didn't want to elaborate on research and so on. But what I mean is that whatever book the other publisher wants from among Indian writing, whether it is fiction or non-fiction or academics or children's book or whatever, we should support them to translate those books to other languages. So it's literature plus ideas and everything else.
I'll just quickly add to the reason why, in my opinion, is that most of the translation subvention programs of other countries are designed around culture. They're seen as cultural activity, and I think the funding also comes from their cultural departments, and therefore they promote literary works rather than or education-related books. That's my experience with having known all these people.
But if you do select, I have selected a book of philosophy or academics or anything from those languages, I think those agencies will continue to support despite whatever work that is. So most of them don't restrict to any one aspect of their writing. So this is about Indian writing, so it includes everything else.
But I think the bulk of Indian publishing in languages is in literature. I mean, that's a larger question, Vivek. Sorry, wait. Satya's hand was up first, but we'll just finish and then I'll come.
A very basic question. We are into English to Marathi translation. We have just started up publishing. And now we are also, doing the vice versa. Some Marathi good literature into English. Now, how can I get associated with PIL to support me or help me to get this kind of?
See, if there's an organization, then you can apply to them to pay for your translator, at least part of the fees.
But we are still talking at a very conceptual level. It doesn't exist.
There is no company there.
PIL doesn't exist
No organization.
So this is, this is an ideation session. Satya.
Yeah, two things. One, to respond to Vivek, the reason why non-fiction is not being talked about is because, one, it's a very difficult process, okay, and people have pretty much given up. I think, I'm sure you're aware that the National Translation Mission put a lot of money and quite a bit of time and effort into, getting a lot of textbooks, the leading textbooks in each of the fields, in both the sciences, the humanities, and in engineering, and maybe in medicine too, translated into many of the Indian languages. But there are not enough translators who can translate it. If you have to have a good translation, then the translator must be fluent in both the source and the destination languages, and must have very good domain knowledge of what they are translating. And even if you find people who have all of this, then they must have the inclination and the time. And what you can pay a translator, given the economics of the publishing model, is simply not going to be comparable to the opportunity cost for the translator to do whatever else they can do, given that they are fluent in both languages, they are a domain expert, they could be doing hundreds of other things. So finding good translators for serious academic stuff is very difficult.
In fact, the National Translation Mission does not support literary works. They only support academic and educational texts.
Even I have bought rights for a few popular science books that have sold millions of copies. And after translation, I have dumped all of them, lost all the money because they are not up to a mark. Translation is very bad.
Yeah, and one of the reasons for this, I'd also say, is that in most of the other countries, the language of scholarship is also the language of the masses. Whether you take the US, the UK, France, Germany, Spain, Italy, and so on. Whereas in India, the language of scholarship is English, and the language of the masses is different. So very few people who may be fluent in an Indian language are fluent in English too. That section of people who are fluent in both are very few, and those who are fluent in both have hundreds of other things they could be doing rather than this.
No.
No, I'm saying no, literary works, people are doing it. I would actually say that translations of literary works are not as good as they can be. Okay, I am not sure if Kannan would agree with that or not. They could be much better. So we can only live with what we can get today. That's one. And the second thing is that there are people who are passionate about a book. So they like a book and they want to bring it to their own language. So they're doing it not because they're going to get paid for it in comparison to what they could get paid for doing something else, but because they want to see it there.
Okay, I'm sorry, but there are many hands, so we will continue this.
Okay,
but I'd like to just quickly have others pitch in with what they want to say. One second.
The other thing that I wanted to ask Kannan was, how would you envisage funding such an organization? Who should fund it? Should it come from, say, a contribution from each publisher who's going to pay an annual contribution which creates this fund? Because you're saying it's clearly not supposed to be government funded. So it has to be funded in some other way. So what funding mechanism have you thought of?
I have only a very vague impression about this. Yes, publishers associations can do it, but I'm not sure they are going to do it. But you are talking about corporate social responsibilities. I have seen organizations like Indian Foundation for Arts in Bangalore who support fine arts in so many activities and research. Why can't we have something funded by various agencies for literature? I'm very happy to take government funds, but the government, if it takes control over what happens, the independence of the institution is very important, I think, because governments change, the ideology changes, and that can't be allowed to interfere with the working of an organization promoting literature.
Sorry, the lady in red.
I do, basically I am a physics person, so I do physics in regional languages. That's my language. So NTS had contacted me for translation. And one of the things, they said, how many words per day? They said, around 1,000 words per day you got to do. I said, no way. Physics, 1,000 words I got to translate. They said, we will supply you all the books possible. You will have to browse through every book and find the correct meaning and correct word for this. I said, 1,000 words.
Jaya was... I'll come back to you, sir. We actually have very little time.
I hope I'm not I'm not asking anything untouchable, but do we have some idea of what kind of costs are involved in acquiring rights from within India, from outside, and actual translation costs? Like what kind of money we are talking about? If we're saying we bring out one piece of literary work, some ideas.
See, as of now, that Indian publishers, they are not making any money from selling rights, most of them, or very little money. So I don't think they are very high on expectations there, because whatever comes their way, they are happy. So what I would say is that even if you, let's say, if you buy 1,000 copy rights from a Malayalam publisher and give it as a gift to a Hindi publisher, he may be happy to, and also give him some funds. And for 1,000 copies, for a book, say 200 rupees at 7.5% is the royalty rate. It's not very high number. And if you, let's say, pay them at 1 rupee per word for translations, subsidy, all that won't add to a big amount. For a small amount, we can get it done. So it's not a big amount we're talking about.
Mr. Karnadas. Fred, I'll come to you.
Hello. See, actually, we have a catalog of about 1,400 books, right? Out of which more than 650 to 700 books are translated books. Okay, including Jesus Lived in India. We have translated it, and we sold very well.
Jesus Lived in India.
Yeah, we sold very well. Same way, we have translated Osho, and we have about 80 or 90 books of Osho translated, doing very well. And then most of our books are not literature, but the thing is on self-help. Dr. Koppmeyer, Dr. Wayne Dyer, and Louise Elia also we have translated. So the thing is, there is a bigger market because all those books which are not available in your mother tongue, please see that you get the rights for those books. We have published so many management books also to answer to his. And management books doesn't sell that way. Because, our managements are totally very conventionally managed in Tamil Nadu, traditionally managed. So any kind of a new ideas, it takes time to penetrate. So the management books doesn't sell. And our own self-help books are selling very well. And we have translated James Early Chase, we have translated. We have translated Agatha Christie also. They are doing very well. Translations, for light reading and self-help definitely helps in the market.
Mm-hmm. You know, we are looking at money which is always in short supply. I was wondering if we could look at some technical fix, just to share 2 or 3 very small bullet points. One thing is, we took a children's book and we went online and thought of crowdsourcing it. So we asked people that we have this children's book written in English, can you translate it to Portuguese? So out of 24 stories, we managed to do 23. Now we are looking for an editor to bring it all together because we don't have the skills. In the university here, we've been trying to prevail on them that they have MA students who in different languages. These students are multilingual mostly, strong in one language, you know. If they can have a 6-month diploma program in translation studies, it gives them employability, it gives us affordability in that sense. Because as of now, the cost of translation is very high. Kannada, I can get a word translated for 75 paise or 1 rupee. But Spanish, it goes up to 6 rupees. So we need to look at some kind of technical solutions. I don't know if any of you all have seen the Wikipedia Translate tool. So if you know your domain in that sense, it's not the worst. It's not the worst. I've done it myself with knowing about 10% of Portuguese, you know, because we share a lot of Konkani Portuguese words in common. I translate from Portuguese into English. And of course, in Wikipedia, you have the safety net that if you make a mistake, someone else is going to correct you there. Because at the end of the day, we'll have to adopt some of these techniques. Otherwise, money is never going to come. 10 years down the line, we'll be talking the same thing.
Okay, that is a wide, yeah.
Just to add to what Frederick is saying, why not think of, just like we're thinking of, I would say a subscription-based raising of funds by publishers involved in translation, publishing translations, so that the pinch is not on 1 or 2 or 3. There's a fairly large base. The other thing is, why don't you think of forming a pool of translators, good translators, and maybe editors working with those translators to, kind of train them into being good translators. And the pool can be drawn, the resources can be drawn from universities that have language programs. JNU, for instance, where I stay on campus, they have all the, not the Indian languages, but the foreign languages. Now, students are always willing to, they have the passion, they have need for money, however little. They will not charge as much as professional translators. So these are, I think you have to think out of the box a little bit rather than try to tap already existing mechanisms.
Who else has a question? If you could quickly put on. Vidula, I know. Venkatesh. Next. And I know.
So, I just had a quick idea. Has anyone thought of crowdfunding for something like this? Pre-sell translated books, and if you reach the particular target, the money gets made available.
Yeah, at least we have tried that in Tamil. That we announced a pre-publication scheme. I know it's very successfully working in Malayalam.
No, there are crowdfunding platforms where you can raise money online and pre-sell copies about 6 months in advance or something like that.
Okay, I've not done that either online, but with my own media I've tried that. Usually these schemes don't seem to work very successfully, at least in Tamil, but I know they work very well in Malayalam. So this also varies from language to language. But again, what I want to say is, even if the language readers cannot respond in a huge manner and make this possible, even if it's a very small language, or where literature reading is in minority, even there we should be able to extend some support to make this all possible, even if the book market is not very developed.
See, there are two things, meaning there is a cost to translation. So you cannot pre-sell without having the translation done, right? In the sense, translation is also a very creative activity, so I just like to say that machine-related algorithmic things would work to an extent. For certain kinds of works, of course, they work. I read many different languages thanks to Google Translate.
He's talking about crowdfunding.
Crowdfunding, you have to show what you're going to sell in crowdfunding. Authors can do that, yeah. Yeah, The whole idea is that we need something which is bankable and sustainable and can actually, that way you plan a long-term program. So ideas have to be from keeping a one-off project here and there which can, and it'll entirely depend, in crowdsourcing will depend on how much you can really attract the crowd. But what we are talking about is something much more sort of enduring, durable, very, very long-term and sustainable. Something that you can plan a long set of books that can go out, that can be supported. I mean, this is the only way it will work from a long-term perspective. That's my view, because I think these are exciting ideas and publishers are trying this out. Like Blaft has tried to do a science fiction anthology in translation through crowdfunding. But again, they have to put a lot of time and effort to just for that one book to begin with. And perhaps another book will not raise that money. So then if they'd ever tried another book, they may not raise the same kind of funds, may not even be able to succeed. I don't know. I'm not saying they can't. For the entire translation program, you mean? That's, yeah, that's perhaps the more practical thing to do than per book. Just 1 second. There was, Vidula was waiting for the mic, and Venkatesh will come. And we'll only have... Yeah. Sure, sure.
Can I?
Yes, please.
We are a translation agency, if you call us that, and we are very happy that there is a very encouraging response from publishers, and I have very renowned some of the clients here present in the audience as well. So I just wanted to share 2 things and ask one question. One is, I completely agree that the translation is a very, very creative process, is actually regenerating the content in the different language. At the same time, when it is commercially done, publishers also do give sufficient time for the translation process, and at the same time it is the translators and the, now if we call ourselves an agency, it is our responsibility that we stay true to the content. And when it is done repeatedly and when you are very conscious about the quality of the work, publishers do give you sufficient time. Another thing is about the subjects of the translations. Even I was a bit doubtful that whether this read from supervision or self-help books will sell in the Indian languages, and publishers are the best people to know. But whenever I visit book fairs and other places where people are buying books, I'm pleasantly surprised that people are buying books on supervision, people are buying books on self-help, and in good numbers. So, I mean, there is definitely a upwardly mobile population that wants to know what is being said in English or in other languages, and that should be available in their own languages. My observation and my question is that all languages are not ready for the same content at the same time. Like some of, say, a women-centric issues, not all the languages are ready for that kind of content. So there may be some time lag on translation of one title in all the languages. So how do we address that? Or is it our responsibility to make those languages or the people ready for that kind of content at the same time?
No, here obviously the publisher will make the choice, what he thinks is ready, or maybe he might choose something that he thinks should be changed. Both ways he can make a choice. So after he makes his choice, then we say support him to get the book across. So it may also make sense to publish a book on a woman-centric issue to a language that is not ready. Maybe it's more important than giving to a language that is ready.
Venkatesh.
Yeah, you said that first the translation has to go to English, high-quality English translation, and then for the foreign publishers to look at it. Would you think that would it not dilute the whole process of translating from one language to the second language?
No, I made a very important differentiation. What I said was, this is to sell the rights. When the actual translation happens, we should always give importance to wherever possible to directly go from source language to the foreign language, but for the editor to make an informed choice, since they are not language experts.
Most of the
then you need an English text to make the decision possible.
This is for decision making, that you need a selected, at least a portion translated into English for them to be able to. Okay. Yeah, Ramu, since yesterday you raised a hand and I didn't allow you to speak. He's very upset with me, he won't come next year.
So just one small input. This is to do with a very successful translation model, to call it, is the 60s and 70s in Indian theatre. It's again one of the unrecognized chapters that has unfolded. I don't know whether theatre play scripts are necessarily called as publishing works, but we had at that time, I think we were lucky to have about 14 greats, Tendulkar, Badal Babu, Karnad, Mohan Rakesh, Dharamveer Bharti, etc. Sort of, the giants of Indian theatre. But what was happening very interestingly and is fantastic is that the works were getting translated simultaneously. So you had a Tendulkar translating a Karnad or a Badal Babu and vice versa. So two things were happening. One was, of course, the quality of work, the translation, and secondly, the dramaturgical quality of the play scripts that were being published. Extraordinary. The thing was, this was happening informally and through their own internal network, and there was no sort of institutional support of any kind. Ye pagalpan tha aur ye zari tha aur masti mein kar rahe the aur ho gaya. And the great thing is that therefore we had this body called the Great Indian National Theatre. The moment state bodies and government bodies got involved in this project of translation, it was completely destroyed. Then the work was A, shoddy, and B, it was inaccessible to most of us. Whereas these texts are still available. Today you still have great playwrights around, young contemporary playwrights. But the fact of the matter is the texts are A, because they're so badly translated. So I always say this, ki government of India ko mat trust karo, Basmasur jaise, whoever they bless, satyanash ho jata hai. So whatever you do with this project, please don't take government help.
Thank you for that.
I just want to add a comment that a senior writer, Ashok Mitran, made in Tamil. I'm not endorsing this. There may be a grain of truth in it. What he said was that lot of translations were happening in India till the government of India made it its responsibility to translate within languages.
Mr. Mehta, if you could quickly share with us how you have been doing your translation program and also your recommendation for a project like this, of this scale.
The recommendation, I would say that we should involve many authors from all the regions, so that this is the good platform what we are doing here. So we can have those people who can translate directly from the source. So this is the first thing I would like. Regarding my translation programs, I don't think so there is any problem there, because if you pay a good money to a good translator who you're working with for a long time, with an editor given in a hand. So after some 4 or 5 books, he or she, they can translate it in a very good manner, and then you don't have to pay for the editor again. So these kinds of things we can do. And commercially talking, see, we have to see very professionally. Because just saying that this is a translation and I would pay a lesser amount and not editing on those things would not help. I think so it should be done professionally.
But do you also sell rights?
Yeah, I am selling rights, but it is in a very less numbers.
Okay.
And regarding the translation, every translation cannot be a hit one. Like I would give you an example of Sachin Tendulkar. I did that, but the expectations which I had got, it was all a failure for me.
Okay. Alind, if you could quickly give us Rajkamal's experience, and again, keeping that in view for this project.
We don't have any issue in translation of foreign rights. We generally took foreign rights like Stephen Hawkins and some many other big authors. The basic issue is the fund. If you have fund, then there is no issue. If you don't have fund, then you have to suffer somewhere.
Yes. But are you able to sell rights? Because this is about our literature sort of traveling.
We are not. Recently, we sell outs of our 2 books, Juthan, to there's a French publisher, I think, Draupadi.
German publisher.
German publisher, Draupadi. And recently, I think translation of interchanging of copyrights, it's getting quick because few of Marathi publishers approach us to get some rights of some Hindi books.
Okay, so within India, the language is,
Yeah.
you're able to sell rights within India.
I think that will be more better because it's we exchange our literature.
Sure. So I'm just going to throw this open, although we are really overshooting our time, but since everyone is interested in this conversation, how do you think something like this can be funded? I mean, one way is crowdfunding, but are there any ideas in the group if one were to set up an organization that would help give translation subsidies? How could we potentially fund it? Vivek, any ideas?
I'm sure there are enough philanthropists who would be able to do that. Can get that. Sarah Pawan, the founder of this, is probably one place I would not be sure something like that. He's a great lover of India culture. And there are lots of them.
So we could talk to you later. And
Yeah, I'll direct you in the right direction. It goes to the other categories, but then it goes directly. Yeah. It's a Narayan Murthy. Take a look around. Murthy Foundation has funded a center in Harvard. What really prevents the big individuals in India from actually looking at this and doing it? If it's properly structured and properly managed, I'm pretty sure funding shouldn't be an issue. Yes.
subscription was another way that Indu was saying that we could.
No, I always speak from the spirit of independence. So if we can actually not go to a philanthropist, if it fails, that's another factor. But supposing there are 8 to 10 publishers who primarily publish translations across languages in India, and 10 of them are willing to set aside a certain amount of money as a subscription base or as investment towards setting up this common institution or organization. Why not? Try that, see if it works, see if there are enough funds, and that may then generate more funds. It may have a multiplier effect.
Yes, please. And we'll end with that, I'm sorry.
I mean, there was, Popular Prakashan tried this Hindu with a project called Andar Bharati. Andar Bharati for translation among Indian languages. And that senior person traveled all over India requesting publishers for fund. Nothing worked. And governments. Yeah, no, that is what he was trying to. He was inviting everyone to be part of Andar Bharati. It didn't work. And yeah. Okay.
No,
it's okay.
No, please, I'm so sorry.
Yes, and government institutions, you see, there were translations in India in independent movements time and all. It was on another spirit. And even now, translations continues happen in individual authors. Say, for example, in Malayalam, this Gabriel Garcia Marquez's works were translated by V.K. Unnikrishnan even before he got Nobel Prize. It was on his passion. See, that work will continue. And abroad, when you talk about the inefficiency of NBT or Sahitya Akademi or ILA, but there were individual initiatives like Ravi DC or VK Karthika, etc. were trying for decades how many titles they could sell. And how many titles, I mean, you can't say that these individuals are less efficient or, so there are other problems. So if VK Karthika and Ravi DC could not sell rights to German or French as...
But that's the point I'm making, that what I'm saying is that I have tried for 10 years, I have been able to sell only 3 rights.
Yeah, so it is not that just NBT's inefficiency, there are other problems.
No. Now what the point I'm making is that if the agencies fund those translations, give us some support, or keep their word.
I have no disagreement on that.
So that's why it didn't happen. That's why it didn't happen.
So
that's why we need this. That's why.
It's not about how much we are able to sell, but the effort that goes, because NBT and Touch Academy have the funds to do this. They have the mandate and the funds to promote Indian literature outside of India. And
agreed.
NBT has tried.
Agreed. But there are other issues also. There are international cultural issues. Tamil language and Tamil literature is not read by French.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I gave example of a language that's not very appreciated across Europe, Turkish. What they have managed to do with the agency. If they can do it from Europe, maybe we can do 50% of that from India. I think it is possible. It's not a big target.
But, yeah, unless we profile and actually pitch ourselves, they won't even know about our literature.
Everyone loves a good story. At the end of it, everyone wants to read a good story.
But just to give an example, a French publisher has done Bashir, and they completely loved the writing. But why she can't go on? She actually bought a book, applies to agencies, no response. That's a huge story. I can write an article on that. So,
Translation across Indian language.
yeah, both. I've done both. I think I spoke about it before you came in.
No, see, there are a lot of work. Say, for example, take Sahitya Akademi published Arogya Niketan in Indian languages, which is, it is spreading. NBT published Vaikam Muhammad Bashir's works in Assamia, which is being textbooks in Assamia for a long time.
I recognize the good work before I said anything, made any critical comments. So I'm not denying that at all completely. We are beneficiaries of all
There are
those.
socio-political issues
I have grown up reading NBT books, children's books. There was nothing else available those times. So it's not at all a point that nothing was done by that.
The Bashirs, and we have to write, get our contemporary literature in circulation. We can't stick to our classics and keep.
No, one more agency working in the same field is very good. One more hand, which is very good. I welcome.
Just on the issue of translating into European languages, I mean, one problem that you will also face is simply the number of people who can actually do the translation. Like, for example, if you take Tamil, from Tamil into German, that may still be one of the cases where you have actually a relatively good amount of people who would theoretically be able to do it, because you have a lot of Sri Lankan Tamils now staying in Germany. But the problem still remains that you won't have any professional translators from Tamil into German. That means practically anyone you find as a translator will do it as a labor of love. And you will find these individuals as well who do not take any money or so, but they still have to invest time into it. So the number of people you have who can do this work and the kind of incentives that they would also need to take time off that they might have for other things, that also needs to be factored in. Like, for example, when I translate a book from Tamil into German, I have an academic job, and unfortunately my universities, even if I'm hired as a teacher or lecturer in Tamil, a translation still doesn't count for them. What would count would be a grant, however small, or an award, or whatever. All these things I can put onto a CV. But these are also things one has to think about. For Turkish, you have, I guess, a far larger number far larger pool of translators in different countries in Europe.
That's true. But for example, that if Draupadi Verlag is given some support, he is of course prepared to do much more than what he is doing right now from many other Indian languages. So he's a case where he wants to do a lot of work, but he's unable to do much because he's not getting the kind of support. If you can take an author to him, we can or buy him rights for a book, and he's more than happy to publish more books than he's doing right now.
The membership is only 50 rupees per book club. So till now we have run around 26 book clubs. So those are around 150 plus books which have been given, and those books are compulsory, which are to be purchased by the book club members. So we have got around 1200 plus members for that, where the first edition is gone to the members. So only translated books in fictions only. But we also offer other translated books at 30%.